There are some hidden ties between Aladdin and the Indiana Jones franchise. The Indiana Jones movies are well known for adventure, especially about finding historical or supernatural artifacts. Sound familiar? That's because the same themes run through Aladdin, especially when it comes to popular Middle Eastern symbols. In this video, we'll discuss the similarities between both versions of Aladdin and the franchise, plus the entire timeline of the Indiana Jones movies. First off, Aladdin was influenced by the Indiana Jones franchise. The references were on purpose. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jones goes into a Peruvian jungle to get a golden idol from a temple that's been abandoned for a really long time. In the same way, a disguised Jafar sends a brave street rat into the Cave of Wonders to get the genie's lamp. Both the animated version of Aladdin, which came out in 1992, and the live-action version, which is coming out in 2019, have a sense of high adventure. Will Smith did an excellent job as the genie in the remake, but it was Robin Williams' iconic performance as the genie that made the original movie a classic. In both versions of Aladdin, two parts are similar to the first Indiana Jones movie. There's the Cave of Wonders scene and Abu the monkey. Up next, how does Aladdin's Cave of Wonders compare? As Aladdin goes to get the lamp, his monkey friend Abu pulls a jewel out of its place, which causes the Cave of Wonders to fall apart. This part of the Disney classic is a direct homage to the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indiana Jones gets an idol from the Hovitos temple. Just by looking at how Aladdin takes the lamp, it's easy to see how the first scene in Raiders with Indiana Jones influenced the way the scene in Aladdin is set up. Aladdin finds the lamp on a high post just like Indy did with the idol in Raiders, and both characters are hesitant to take the object down. The collapse of the caves caused by Abu's greed, not by any traps built into it, but this fits with Abu's connection to Indiana Jones. Followed by, what about Abu the monkey? In Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he meets Salah in Egypt, Jones has a monkey friend just like Aladdin. Abu and Indy's monkey friend both help out their human friends. In Raiders, the monkey eats a poisoned date to save Indy's life, but Aladdin's monkey friends and Indy's monkey friends are even more closely linked. Why? Well, they both use the voice talents of the famous actor Frank Welker. Even though the 2019 Aladdin's different from the original in some ways, Welker was back to voice Abu in The Cave of Wonders. Welker's vocal performances as Abu and Indy's monkey friends are, of course, very different. Abu has a lot more slapstick humor and banter with Aladdin, while Indy's monkey friends are more serious. Still, the fact that Welker played both monkeys in both movies makes Aladdin and Raiders of the Lost Ark more like each other as adventure films. Between Abu and the scene in The Cave of Wonders, it's clear that Aladdin owes as much to the Indiana Jones movies as any other modern adventure film. Moving on to Spielberg was cool with the referencing. It's not stealing though, because when they showed it to Steven Spielberg, he was cool with it. The allusions are intentional. When the director showed the movie to Spielberg and apologized for stealing some of the visuals from Raiders of the Lost Ark's opening sequence, pointing out that he had taken a lot of visual ideas from older movies when making Indiana Jones. Even the original franchise was directly based on early 20th century adventure serials. It's true when they say that nothing can be truly original in this day and age. Now let's look at the timeline of the Indiana Jones movies. Since the first movie came out in 1981, a complicated timeline has developed. These movies take place over more than 30 years in real time and a little more than 20 years in universe, if you count only some historical events in each movie. Indiana Jones spans the globe to find and protect the world's greatest treasures, like the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. Even though the sequels have never been as good as the first movie, the timelines become complicated, but the order is easy to figure out. But history goes further and is more complex than what you see in the movies. The timeline doesn't consider the books, comics, and the 90s show based on the character, and this makes things even more complicated. What's more important is that all of this covers Indy's childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood, not to mention time and division in the franchise universe. Each of his adventures are based on a real-life event or, in the case of the Crystal Skull, a made-up story about aliens. This means that essential parts of every story took place hundreds of years before Indiana Jones was born. With the aliens, the idea is that they came to Akator and taught the tribe's people essential things. In honor of the alien explorers, the tribes built the city of Akator and gathered a huge amount of gold and other treasures. Also, in 1912, he met a man in a Panama hat who was trying to steal a golden crucifix that Coronado owned. After using a whip for the first time, he got a well-known chin scar during this fight. During this year, his mother also died. Let's learn more about the Temple of Doom and how it fits into the timeline. This was set in 1935 and took place in Shanghai and India. In Shanghai, after barely getting away with Lao Che, Jones leaves the city. He gets away with the nightclub singer Willie Scott and Short Round, and the three try to escape by stowing away on a plane out of the city. What they don't know is that Lao Che owns the plane. Lao Che's men dump the fuel and bail out using parachutes, leaving Indiana, Willie, and Short Round in a pilotless plane with no fuel heading straight for the mountains. And the three have another close call when they take a life raft, jump out of the plane, and ride it down to the river to the Indian village of Mayapur. The village is a safe haven for them until they find out that some children have been missing, and Indy suspects it's because a sacred Sankara stone has gone missing. The villagers direct them to Pankot Palace because the stone was taken from a temple nearby. Then the entire Pankot Palace fiasco takes place. This is also the part of the movie timeline where most of the racist mistakes in the Indiana Jones movies happen. Coming up, what about Raiders of the Lost Ark? This movie is set right after Temple of Doom in the franchise year 1936. Jones goes to many places at this time. In Peru, he avoided several traps to get a golden idol from an old temple. Rene Bellick, another archaeologist, met Indiana Jones as he left, and Bellick took the idols from Indiana and then he left. When Jones discovered that Abner was dead and that Marion Ravenwood had the headpiece, he went to Nepal to find her. Marion is found in a bar with Indiana, but a group of Nazis found her first. There was a gunfight and Indy and Marion barely made it out with the headpiece. A Nazi U-boat stops the tramp steamer. Bellick got out and took the Ark, Indiana, and Marion prisoner. He then took them to an island to test the Ark's power before giving it to Hitler. The Ark then closes up by itself. Indiana and Marion brought the Ark back to the United States, where the government took it for more research. Next, The Last Crusade. 2 years after the previous one, this movie was set in 1938. He met the man in the Panama hat in Portugal, an old enemy from childhood. They fought on Panama's hat boat somewhere near Portugal's coast. Indy won the fight and recovered the Cross of Coronado. He also found out about his father, who'd gone missing. His father, Henry, was last seen in the catacombs of a library, so Indy and Elsa go there. In the tomb of a knight from the First Crusade, they find the full inscription on a stone table. The Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword finds out that they're in the tomb and sets it on fire, and the pair escapes. Finally, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. In the timeline, this was set in 1957, so some time had passed since the last movie. In Connecticut, Indy had to take a leave of absence that lasted for a really long time, and shortly after, Mutt came to him and asked him for help in finding Harold Oxley. Oxley was friends with Marion and other members of the Williams family. He was also in Indy's class at Oxford. This is one of the many confusing parts of the plot that have led many people to say that Crystal Skull is the worst Indiana Jones movie. Marion was also married to him in this episode, then he went back to work at Marshall College. Most people thought this was the biggest plot hole in the movie since Jones was fired earlier and no reason was given for why he was hired back. And on that note, that's a wrap for this video. What do you think of how Aladdin references Indiana Jones? Are there other famous movies that have done the same? Also, is the timeline of the franchise challenging to understand? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.